So slightly worse than the previous month, but slightly better than August. Is this a positive prognosis? Because if I look on the year-on-year numbers, and yes, it is off a low base, it's up almost 20%.
Indeed, I think the numbers are good. If you look at the overall increase for year to date, it's 16.5%. So that shows that indeed 2011 is performing much better than 2010.
Of course, Kobus, you've got that on-the-ground presence. So let's run through the actual demand you've been seeing filtering through and what kind of progress you've seen in this quarter that's just passed.
Yeah, what was good, of course, as I said, the passenger car business market has been steadily growth. Confirming what Sydney has said. On the commercial vehicle side, I could confirm that the market, specifically in the extra heavy segment, has still been very buoyant, and year to date we're sitting at some 42%, which is of course off a very low base, but some good indicators coming out of the long distance haulage business, construction and services and the like.
I was just about to ask, when you say commercial vehicles, the extra heavy vehicles, are you alluding to the likes of what is being used in the construction sector? Is there a fair mix between the two?
I must, the other very interesting fact is that the extra heavy segment is now comprising 45% of the total commercial vehicle segment, you know, up from, you know, around about the 35s. Which
that was
is
from the last year.
Correct. So this is definitely an indication, you know, and if we look at which segments are performing well, it is on the construction side, on the service side, and definitely on the long distance general freight haulage side.
So that from an industry perspective, when it comes to the average consumer, what kind of activity are we seeing on the passenger vehicle side of things? Because we know that that has been somewhat of a strong performer through this year.
The passenger side of things has always been the backbone of the South African motor industry. It has remained that way. So even though, as Kobus indicates, you see a lot of activity in the commercial side, the passenger market has also been steady and have shown good growth. And this is related to the interest rates being at the levels that they have been for a while now.
Kobus, it's been related to the interest rates on the one hand, but it's also been related to affordable low-entry vehicles that have been entering the market in a very big way. I mean, what does this spell for you as a business, as Mercedes-Benz?
You know, obviously we take note of this market development. I mean, just as a supporting point, if you look at the customer interest shown at the recent Joburg International Motor Show, especially in that segment, you know, it is clearly, you know, where the business is going. And as Mercedes-Benz, we launched our new concept A-Class at the Joburg show, and the interest that we had in that vehicle also indicates to us that the market growth worldwide will be in the more compact smaller base car segments.
I went to the motor show and I showed a lot of interest because I actually sat in that car, but it doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to buy it.
Financing a very big problem.
Absolutely. So I mean, how do you you know, say that there is a lot of interest? Are you actually seeing people coming into your stores and saying, well, this is what I want this car and I want you to finance it?
Obviously on that vehicle we had a lot of interest, you know, because this was a move from Mercedes-Benz, you know, from a more traditional base.
So what is the price tag on that car?
Depends on the finance from Sydney. So we do see some activity, as I said, in our dealerships, also in the floor traffic, and we do see that the South African economy, as it transforms, you know, that there's certainly a shift to the, you know, to the smaller car, to the specifically as a result also of our traffic congestion, you know, and the unique challenges we have in this country.
To add to what Kobus is saying, if you look at the detail of the NAAMSA stats, you'll see that the smaller, more efficient vehicles are the ones that are selling much more. So we thought giving you know, advertising advantages to the likes of Toyota, but if you look at the Toyota Auris, if you look at VW Vivos, so those size of vehicles, and I'm just trying to neutralize the Mercedes-Benz issue here, to give also you know, recognition to the other vehicles.
Let's take a look at financing, Sydney, because consumers are also opting to address, you know, affordability constraints for desired vehicles. So let's take a look at that and the kind of shifts we're seeing in trend.
So you have to link that also to the inflation on the vehicles. So the new vehicle inflation has been slightly higher than that of used vehicles, which closes the gap slightly between prices of new vehicles and those of used. So an individual would rather go for a new vehicle, but smaller version to close the gap instead of going for the used vehicles.
What's also interesting,
so that's where the consumer psychology.
Longer term periods, though, also taken out. Longer term contracts, so 60 months plus.
Yes.
To make it more affordable. Is that also a very big trend that has actually been around for some time now, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah. So the trend is ticking up, and we've seen that 72 months now has become the norm, as in the last year and a half, or even 2. 60 months used to be the norm in terms of what an individual would take as a contract term. Yeah. We're seeing now that the norm is 72 months, and that's related to the issue that you've raised, which will also have an impact into the future, because the replacement cycle will also elongate a little bit more.
Yeah. Let's pick up on what Sydney touched on there, Kobus. I mean, the ratio of used to new vehicles, 1.5 used to 1 new, and we're seeing a closing of that gap. What kind of trend are you witnessing on the floor?
I would like to, comment more on the commercial vehicle side, of course, where the ratios are slightly different, new to used. But we've certainly seen an uptick in the used vehicle business. I think there's also an expectation that with the currency going south, in many cases that customers expect, new vehicle prices to rise, and therefore it makes the used vehicle business proposition, a bit better. So there's definitely been some activity in that regard as well.
But the rand is quite strong at this point relative to what it was. So are you still seeing quite a bit of buying? We know that, look, it has weakened, but the point is that we're not sitting at, 10 rand to the US dollar or,
No, certainly. It is stronger than what it used to be a couple of years ago, but I think the issue is more the uncertainty. That when you do a capital purchase on a commercial vehicle, which is actually a project finance transaction, you need to ensure that you mitigate your risk as far as you can. So I think this has definitely stimulated some demand, in the last quarter.
Let's take a look at outlook moving forward, Sydney, because the last time you were at the desk, we were talking about consensus being for expectations for annual growth to hover around that 15% mark. Is that being maintained, that base case at this stage?
Yeah, so we think for this year it will slightly be better than the 15%. So if you look at it, we're only left with 2 months, and normally November and December are not bad months. So we will see, I think, up to 15% or even more in this year. So in terms of outlook, as you look into the new year, we are a bit conservative, given that we've now moved the base higher for 2010. So which means that 2012 is not going to see the kinds of increases that we've seen now.
Sydney, would you be able to give us insight into the default rate?
Well, you must just look at the consumer base. I'm not going to share the Absa default rates, but if you look at the consumer base, we've got 8.8 million active consumers, out of which close on 47% are impaired. So in other words, they have bad records of some sort. That's about half of the base.